Welcome to Midlife Women Entrepreneurs, where you'll find real stories, practical strategies, and the mindset shifts you need for entrepreneurship. If you've ever felt like midlife was too late to launch a business, write a book, or chase a dream, think again. I'm Lynette Turner, your host, and I'm bringing you inspiring conversations and practical tips to help nudge you forward and keep growing in midlife. So let's jump in. All right. Well, welcome, Madeleine Rayford Holland to Midlife Women Entrepreneurs. I'm excited to have you on the call today. You and I met through the podcast. However, you're not quite in your midlife entry yet, but when we jumped on a pre-call, I really loved your story. I loved the trajectory of your career. You've been this entrepreneur since you were right out of school. And everything that you're doing and the story that you're going to share today is so relevant to anybody in any age. So that's the reason why you're on the podcast today. I wanted you to share your story. And so without further ado, let's just jump right into it and give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself, some backstory, and then we'll get right into talking about your business and how you've been growing it and all that kind of great stuff.
Well, thanks so much, Lynette, for having me and for that intro. I think what really is a true testament to my life and my story is this common thread of going towards the things that I love and like saying no to the things that aren't. And that takes me back to when I was in college. I had initially thought that I wanted to be a doctor, and I went to school to get a biology degree and pre-med, and about halfway through I realized I hate blood, guts, the whole thing. So this really isn't going to be a good fit for me. And they told me that if I wanted to change my major, the way they had structured the degree, I was going to have to spend an extra year there. And I said, you know what? No, thank you. I do not want to spend an extra year in college, give you guys all that extra money. You told me 70% of people do nothing to do with their degree. So I'm just going to get the piece of paper and move on out. So during that time, I had some career counseling, which I was really appreciative of. And they said, hey, you know what? Business entrepreneurship is something that really tracks with what you like. So I did some internships and really poured my heart and soul into that and really found my passion with it. And so after school, I went and became the COO of a government contracting company's systems, processes, automations was something that I had really honed in on during my science degree. And I was good at coming in and auditing a process from start to finish. And I thrived in that role, but I was having to travel about 100 nights a year for this role, which is fun in your 20s, different cities, different places, the
Hotel lobby bars,
all the things. It's fun when you're in that season of life, but I'm sure many of your listeners can relate to. The next season typically comes with a little bit of settling down, kids, family, the whole thing. And that was something that happened. And during the season of travel, I got a little lonely on the road and created this lifestyle website as a creative outlet where I was sharing, all of the different spots I was traveling, the cute hole-in-the-wall restaurants I was finding in the different cities and life on my farm. I had chickens and goats and, fun things. It was just a place for me to share what brought me joy. And that lifestyle website was called Moderately High Maintenance. My husband coined the name. Now he says there's nothing moderate about the high maintenance-ness. If maintenance-ness is a word, I'm not really sure.
We'll make it one anyway.
Today it is. We're just going to roll with it. So that got some traction. I was just doing what I loved, sharing what I enjoyed, and some big name brands started to take notice. Delta Airlines, Target, All Modern, they wanted me to share their products on my platform. And I grew that to a 6-figure business, which was a lot of fun. It was being rewarded for what brought me joy. I think there's a really key lesson there. So fast forward a little bit, I have been sharing this lifestyle website. It taught me how to create content, create it well. I was still in that COO role. My husband was still in government sales. We were traveling, all over Kingdom Come, typically in opposite directions. And we had a 10-month-old little dude. And I will never forget sitting at the kitchen table saying, we are on a hamster wheel, making other people a ton of money. We're not building anything for our future. And if we blink, we're going to wake up. He's going to be grown. We will have both been spinning our wheels and we won't have built anything for ourselves. Something has got to change. And so I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And it was talking about how real estate investing is one of the biggest creators of millionaires and generational wealth. And I said, well, you know what? Tenants and toilets for long-term rentals is not going to be worth it for me. It's not a high enough ROI.
I love that. Tenants and toilets. Because, I think people do think about that when it comes to a rental business. Like, oh my God, now I've got to become this plumber 24/7,
I can't deal, and it's not a lot of money. The traditional way to invest in real estate single family is, you get not necessarily a family, but you get somebody in there for a year at a time, a year, 2 years. They're paying you monthly. You make a couple $100 if you're lucky a month. And then it's like, how do we build a life? How do we build cash flow off of that? You don't, unless you have a crap ton of properties. So I was like, there has to be another way in this. And that's when I thought, what if I created a physical space that was a reflection of all that I've shared on that lifestyle website, Moderately High Maintenance? I've stayed in a ton of Airbnbs, and if I'm doing this math correctly, these people are making a ton of money. That's something I could get behind. So we decided to try our hand at Airbnb, or short-term rental. Fun fact, all Airbnbs are short-term rentals. Not all short-term rentals are Airbnbs, if that makes sense. So Airbnb is the platform.
Sure.
But short-term rentals refers to the larger grouping, because there's Vrbo, there's your own website, all of that. So Fun fact for you listeners out there, if I say short-term rental, it really means all of the same. So we went and acquired our first property. I took all of the stuff that I had shared on that lifestyle website and created this brand standard for our short-term rental property. And it was so successful that we opened 5 more in the next 6 months. And it was a time of rapid growth and scale. And I had to put on my COO hat to really figure out how to put the processes in place to run it so I wasn't creating another job for myself. And, fast forward a little bit more, we've both left our 9-to-5s, and now I help other families create that time and financial freedom with short-term rental businesses.
Yeah, no, it's such a good story. And I love how it evolved, right? So, and I think this is something that you said so many great things. Like, you wanted to make sure that you did things that you loved, and that, you didn't want to do things that and nobody wants to do that. But sometimes we feel a little bit stuck and we don't know what we should be doing. But you sort of followed your heart on that. You didn't really know where this lifestyle website, it probably started as a bit of a blog.
Yeah.
And then, grew into this, hey, there's opportunity to monetize some of this. But you didn't set out to say, hey, I'm going to make this lifestyle website. I'm going to make a ton of money off of it. You
had no idea.
So you're sitting in late night hotel rooms, better than sitting in the lobby lounge all night, and you're writing and you're sharing your story. And then the fact that you then sort of kept it going, you were still working your full-time job. And then this, Rich Dad, Poor Dad book lands in your lap, and you decide, hey, we're going to get into the short-term rental market. Well, what you've done, if I can clarify it, is you've really sort of, when you stay at one of your 7 locations,
16.
16. Whoa, 16. Where did I get 7? 16 locations. Now, a couple of questions there. And I think that a lot of listeners would be interested in knowing. I know that there's some people who don't even own those properties. What they do is they take a lease out on the property, and then they become sort of the property manager, if you will, for lack of a better word. Is that what you've done, or what is your business model?
So the terminology of what you just described, when you have a long-term lease in order to sublease that out for short-term rental, is called arbitrage.
Okay.
And so there are 3 ways to be in the short-term rental business. There's owning the property and then renting it out for short-term. There's that arbitrage model. And then there's co-hosting, where somebody else owns the property and you manage it for them as a short-term rental business.
Okay.
I do all 3 in my portfolio. So the majority I own. I do arbitrage a couple of them. And then I take on a very select number of co-hosting or property management clients.
Okay, so that's great. So good to know. And now, and one of the things that when we were on our pre-call and you talked about it was, I've spent the last 4 years traveling, and I've stayed at probably more Airbnbs than I can care to count, really, to be honest.
Yeah.
But, and you always try to, you start to get smart, you're reading comments, you're reading between the lines on comments to figure out, oh, is this actually a place? Because, I know that there's a lot of design forward Airbnbs, and they say this, this Airbnb is, 5-star and it's designed for, and then you move in and really it's just kind of like, a 3 dressed up is a 9. In the photos, it photographs really well, but when I jump into bed, the sheets are itchy or the bed is uncomfortable. The shower, especially down in Mexico where I have been, the shower is barely works. There's no there's no hot water. There's always cold water, but there's no hot water and stuff. And so when you were talking, I really connected with you when you said, I've taken my moderately high maintenance website and the items that I sell on there, which are luxury items, and I put them in my Airbnbs so that I really create and curate this beautiful experience. But you also took it to the next level, which is super smart, where you said that you ended up saying, shop this experience. And so tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. And so when I said, I took all the products that I had been sharing on this website, a lot of times they're the ones that I use in my own home. And, you don't have anything if you don't have your name and your reputation. And so I took great care curating the items that I put in this property. And most of them are literally the same ones that I use in my home. And I wanted that to be the case because I wanted to be proud of the product that I was offering. If my friends stayed there, I wanted to be able to say, you will love it because these are all of the items in there. And so because I had that experience on that lifestyle website of including affiliate links and just how to monetize things, I brought that experience. Again, no training is ever wasted. I brought that experience into my short-term rental. I have little QR codes in my guest welcome book, and they get a message of like, did you fall in love with something during your stay? You can shop it here and bring it home with you. It's not salesy, but it's giving them another opportunity to say yes. They've already said yes to the property when they booked the stay. And if they love it, it gives them another way to say yes. And we earn a percentage of affiliate revenue off of that. I mean, and it's not small numbers. It's over 6 figures last year of just affiliate revenue on
just affiliate. Yeah,
on
no,
top
that's
of the
great.
booking revenue, which is wild, And I don't know why more people don't, look at whatever business they're in and say, my client has already said yes. How can I give them another opportunity to say yes? It's not salesy. And I think a lot of times that's a mindset thing for us.
Sure.
Is like, I don't want to be salesy. I don't want to come across as pushy, whatever else. It's like, they like you. They like what you're doing. They're continuing to work. Like, figure out what pain points your ideal client has and figure out how to solve their problem and give them another opportunity to say yes. And I think on our pre-call, we chatted a little bit, especially since COVID and the digital age, we all used to go to shopping malls to touch and feel the products that we purchased. I don't remember the last time I went to a mall, the last time I got something that I not off the internet like that, like specifically sheets and mattresses and pillows. And those are the kind of things that are really close and intimate to us. And the most shopped product are the sheets in my property. They're organic cotton, sateen sheets. They're amazing. But people are like, really love these. It takes the guesswork out of the purchase for them. And they've lived with these items in these Airbnbs. And it's just an easy, natural way for them to say yes.
Exactly. And I love how you systematized everything there. It was like the QR code. Like I think about when you stay at, a Four Seasons or a really nice hotel and they have nice crisp sheets and things. I kind of find I'm like taking a peek in the label on the sheets so I can figure out what's going on. But I mean, that should absolutely be in all of those hotels. I mean, I do know that, sometimes they have a little thing or whatever, like you want to buy the house code or something like that. But I love how everything is just like, oh, you like this coffee maker, you like everything that, and that is such a smart idea. And I want to drill down a little bit more on what you said about giving them an opportunity to say yes. And I think that is a real mindset where a lot of people they cringe when they think about selling something or, oh my God, I'd rather give my stuff away for free than to really sell a product or to charge for it because it's just easier and I don't want to sell it. But how do you think you get people to say yes?
So one of the huge themes of my life and my business is quality over quantity. And I pride myself on providing a high quality experience. Anything that I'm offering to somebody, I know it's high quality. So as far as overcoming that mindset piece, one thing that's really helped me is understanding, like, we are in the information age. If somebody wants a piece of information, they can literally go to YouTube and find 10 different people sharing that information. But how I get from like free versus paid is what have you done with all of the free information that is at your fingertips? People who pay for something value it more. So it's a perceived value thing of like, hey, I've got a little skin in the game, so I'm going to use it. And that's been a bit of a challenge when I've gone through my coaching business. It's like, I know there are a lot of other people offering things out there. I know the quality of my product is leaps and bounds ahead of what other people are doing. Why am I afraid to charge for this? I've gotten people ask me, well, I mean, you're pretty expensive. And I'm like, yeah, but the results speak for themselves.
Yeah.
What have you done with all the free information? Because I've had people say, I can go YouTube this. I'm like, well, then go YouTube it.
Yeah. Just okay. So what you're referring to, what Madeleine is referring to, is that she's now turned this, that the evolution of your business has been, again, the moderately high maintenance lifestyle blog, the short-term rental business, curating this beautiful, comfortable experience inside of those Airbnbs. And now what you've done with all of these properties and, understanding, all of the systems that you need to put in place and stuff like that is you're now coaching people to do the same as you in terms of the short term. Is that
absolutely?
Tell us a little bit about that. Like when did you make the decision that you were ready to start coaching in that area?
I think with just like all of these different pivotal points in my story, it felt like the next right best step. And that's my encouragement to anybody is like, follow the next right step. You don't have to have the full plan figured out. But once people started recognizing and seeing the success that I was having in the short-term rental space, I started getting a lot of like, hey, can I take you out to coffee and pick your brain? Can we grab lunch and talk Airbnbs? And while that's really flattering, time is really valuable. And I wanted to be able to really pour into people in a way that was meaningful and impactful. And so it started off, I created a digital course just so people weren't texting me all the time. I'm like, I take this away for free if people will just stop texting me.
Yeah, download this free lead magnet.
Just take the information and leave me alone. I got into this business to free up my time. So after a lot of that, I was like, you know what? The real estate business is so nuanced and people are most successful when I'm helping them navigate. And that was part of my story is I had invested a crap ton in my education getting started in this business. But what I found was a lot of generalized information, not somebody helping me look at a specific property, know if my numbers were going to calculate correctly. Like that's what I needed. And that's what I wanted to provide for people is like, hey, I'm going to hold your hand through this entire process, but it's time consuming. And so I essentially created the program that I wished I would have had when I was getting started to walk people from like 0 to hero and truly create the time freedom, not just the financial freedom. There are plenty of people who will show you how to scale these businesses to, out the wazoo, but you're going to be chained with golden handcuffs because you're running it all the time. Where my short-term rental business, I'm running in less than an hour a week. And that's what I want to teach people how to do.
And so have you started this coaching business?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Started. So couple of years ago, we have a thriving community of about 300.
Okay, that's great. And so when somebody wants to get into this program, do you have any sort of pre-qualifications for them? Like, because it is a one-on-one coaching, is it? Like you've got, you've hired some coaches underneath you.
We've got an amazing team of coaches. I say you don't have to have real estate experience, but you do have to have a commitment to wanting to create a better life for yourself with time and financial freedom. So our most successful clients are people who are fairly high income earning 9-to-5ers who want to deploy their money to make semi-passive income, who need some tax benefits because there are some incredible tax benefits behind short-term rental properties. I won't get too in the weeds of that, but I mean, we've helped anybody down to a family who did not have a lot of extra cash and they spent less than $5,000 out of their own pockets to get into their first property.
Wow, that's great.
And so go ahead.
So basically what you do is, you talked about sort of 3 business models for short-term rental. Do you take them sort of through that? Like, Are you working with them on the numbers? Like, what is your focus? Because I think what you said about, anybody can YouTube anything nowadays, right? It's a quick YouTube search. But I think what you're doing with this coaching program is aggregating all of that learning. And I think that's where the price comes into play, or even just the value of the program is, yeah, sure, you could go out and YouTube all of it. You can YouTube anything really, but it's like you said, you spend a little bit of money on it. You'll get the right process, the right step-by-step process, you'll get the hand holding. When somebody first starts with you, how do you get started with you?
Yeah, so we start with an initial deep dive call is what we call it. And we take a dive into their finances, what their goals are for the business. We look through, all right, are you trying to leave a 9 to 5? Do you just need extra income? Do you need tax benefits? And then we help them narrow down a market from there. And then we're connecting them with lenders, with different real estate agents, and then literally going through the properties with them and helping them understand how to underwrite and analyze every deal to know that it will be profitable. Everything has risk, but this is the best thing that you can do to mitigate that risk when investing in real estate. Once they get the property, then we go into the physical setup. So in order to be successful in this business, you have to have a top-tier property. And like you said, there are a lot of people who say they're design forward and it's a 3 dressed up as a 9. Like, how do we make sure that we are a solid 10 across the board?
Exactly.
And all of the little things, the details that make a phenomenal property. And then we help them with the digital setup piece of it, which is all of the systems, processes, automation to make sure that the guest has a wonderful experience, but you're not having to spend all of your time like in the weeds of the technology to make sure that it's running.
Platform? What's the software I should use? Because ChatGPT isn't going to answer those questions. I will tell you right now that ChatGPT ends up gaslighting you most of the time.
Totally.
So I think this is where that human element still comes into play. So Madeleine, when you've had about 300 people go through the program, what sort of mindset do you help them with? Because I know that inner critic shows up in some weird situations, and it's usually when you're about to step into something that is a little bit wiggly, squiggly, a little bit hard to do. It's unknown. And so how do you help these people with the mindset behind it?
That's a great question. So mindset is something that you have to address from day one. And in that initial deep dive call, like I give everybody a little bit of homework. This is, I want you to read this book. I want you to do this, and one of the first books that I always encourage people to read is Atomic Habits. I'm not sure if you've read that one.
Yeah.
One of my absolute favorites. But part of that initial deep dive call, we explain to people of like, these are the different road blocks that we're going to hit, like the milestones that we're going to hit. It is totally normal to feel this way when this happens. And when we're telling them outside of that critical moment, like this is what to expect and prepping them for that. When they come to us, when they're about to, wire however much money to purchase this property, they're like, I'm kind of freaking out. That's palpitations, heart palpitation. That's a lot of money, and then I'm making the right decision. It's like, remember when we had that conversation on day one? Like, it is totally normal to feel this way. We've all been there. The feeling doesn't go away, whether it's property number 1 or property number 10. You just get more confident in your ability to handle all of those unknowns and take that step. But we're here with you. And I think that's part of like the biggest thing that we do as coaches is sit with people when it's uncomfortable, prepare them for those tough emotions and those big feelings. I mean, part of motherhood, I think, prepared us a lot for that and those big feelings with folks.
Yeah.
But it's like, all right, I'm here with you. I've been here before. I will be here again. But right now I'm sitting here with you and it's going to be okay. And just having that when you're getting into this gets people out of that analysis paralysis piece and actually gets them making forward progress.
I love what you just said there, analysis paralysis, because we always, even though we know, I think everybody knows, you got to just go. You just got to take the step forward. Like if you haven't been on social media reading every single motivational post that just has take a step forward, you've got to know that that's what you've got to do. But people still get caught up in this analysis paralysis. And I think, for me, I want to go back to you and your journey now. Like, so you're coaching, But along your journey of, the past 15 years, 20 years, I guess, is like, where have you struggled with your mindset? And what did you do to sort of work through it? Like, have you always been this confident? Have you always just like, hey, I'm just going to do this?
Oh, that's a great question. No, I don't. I've always had some sense of this confidence of things are going to work out. I have a pretty strong faith, and I've relied on that a lot. That's a really tough question.
Well, think about the times where you were, where you had this, I call it the ice cream moment, where you're sitting on the floor and you're kind of crying, and somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, you want an ice cream? Let's just talk." What how do you push through? And I love what you're saying about faith, because I mean, faith can look like anything to a lot of people. It can look like everything, right? And I know, like, for me, it's always about sort of the universe and believing it and keeping this sort of frequency to keep you going and, vibrating, because we talked about this earlier, where, energy flows where it is, and so if you've got this sort of faith as you talk about it, I think that's just this belief that things are going to work out.
I think one of the mindsets that's really served me well that I've had from a young age, and this came from my parents, one of the sayings that we grew up with, even in kind of tough situations, was we take our fun with us. And it's like, the situation may kind of suck, but you can choose to have fun in any situation. And what that translated into as an adult was, anytime that there's a change in your life, it also brings with it an opportunity. And just like working out flexes those muscles, you have to train yourself and get in the habit of looking at different changes and seasons in your life with an opportunity mindset. And I've had struggles with my health throughout this, and it's like always wondering, in good and bad situations, like, what is the lesson that I need to learn out of this situation? What opportunity has this change brought in my life? And training myself to think through and view life through that lens has been something that's carried with me through every season.
I love that answer. Like, just like the opportunity mindset, that often when change is coming, we get that little wiggly moment. We get that inner critic that starts showing up, and that critic's like, "Hey, no, you don't want to go down there. That's unsafe." But we know that the inner critic is really just there to keep you safe, right? It's your subconscious that's bringing up whatever in the past and saying, "Hey, we kind of tried that before. It didn't work. So why don't you just kind of sit still for a bit?" But I love how you were talking about sort of digging deeper into understanding what is the lesson and what do I need to know in this particular moment that will help me continue to propel forward. Even on our pre-call, you were always about, we were just talking, and everything that you were saying was really around just next step, the next step. I'm doing this because I love it. Oh, I think there's an opportunity to make some money here. Let's go for it. I'm going to try it. That's working. Okay, let's try it a little bit more. Let's add more products. Let's add more services, meaning on your lifestyle website. And then, like, okay, so now what can we do? And I think you're just in it. And one thing that I think for anybody who's listening is what you said about living your passion, right? And doing things that you love, because that, even though it sounds like, do you feel like that sounds sort of cliche? A little bit, like, where people may not believe that, like, I don't,
Yeah, and it absolutely sounds cliche. And oftentimes it's the simple lessons that are the hardest to learn.
Right.
And I do this exercise with somebody on my team, and the question is simple. Like, when we're setting intentions and when we're setting goals, it's, what do you want more of? Like, what are your more ofs? Like, what are you grateful for and what do you want more of? And we move towards what we want more of. If it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. And again, it sounds cliche, but simple scales and complicated fails. Like, why are we making life so complicated? What do you like? So, simple question. What brings you joy and what do you want more of? And
Right.
the sooner you can get clarity on that, the sooner you will understand your exact next best step. And that's all you can do. Otherwise, you're going to sit in analysis paralysis for I don't know how long.
Exactly. And I think too, like, when we talked about running a business, you had mentioned, take yourself out of a job. kind of thing.
Yeah.
Vote yourself out of the job. Talk a little bit about that.
I am all about figuring out what you love and what you want more of in your business and outsourcing the rest. And I think that's a bit challenging when you're getting started with things because you have to wear a bunch of hats. I know I did when I started all of my businesses, but it was my goal to promote myself out of the roles that I didn't like as soon as possible so I could use my time in the highest and best way. So I know that when I am working on something that I'm passionate about and that it brings me joy, like I'm able to perform at a higher level than when I'm working on something that doesn't bring me joy. I think I shared, like, I haven't done laundry in 14 years because laundry is the bane of my existence. But it was like, all right, how do I promote myself out of this at home? I can't do all the things. Is my hourly rate of what it would take to do laundry, could I be working on something that could bring in more? Absolutely. Yeah. So thinking of yourself as a CEO and like moving yourself and promoting yourself out of the role, but understanding the role enough to be able to know when somebody's doing it wrong and understanding your product at such an intimate level that you could do it in your sleep.
Exactly. And I love how, when you think about like, promoting yourself at a job, I think people automatically go to, yeah, okay, so I need to find this role, this role, this role, this role in my business. But what you described was that it's like, hey, cooking, cleaning, like there's other things that you can outsource because I think it's important, like you had mentioned, to understand every single role in your business before you start outsourcing that, just so you know. I know that caught me a couple of times where I didn't know. So I hired somebody and I was completely getting overcharged for the services that they were providing until one day I just said, hey, listen, no more help until I understand the end-to-end process of, making this podcast, producing this podcast, doing my programs, how to even create a reel for social media.
You have to know how to go in and fix it. Like,
exactly.
That's the challenge. And I always want to know, I mean, things happen and like, God forbid somebody gets in a car accident. What if they're the only person who understands how to do that in your business? Like, part of being a business owner is the buck stops with you. And if you don't understand, at least at a high level, how everything works together, you're setting yourself up for being in a dangerous position. And I would much rather understand all of the intricacies of my business than understand how to work a washing machine, Yeah.
Or even just going to get groceries or whatever. Like, it's just those things, right? It's like meal prep is also a big thing. And especially, I'm just my own person, like single person. But I can't imagine trying to like be running these multiple businesses and having kids and husbands. So is your husband let's talk a little bit about that. What's it like to be a business partner with your loved one?
So he manages our home. So he takes on the traditional or the non-traditional role of a man being that he does the cooking. We do have a full-time nanny as well as a housekeeper. And yeah, he's not in the day-to-day of our business, but he knows enough and he is my sounding board. So he brings a phenomenal perspective, but we've learned to stay in our lanes and he's always there to listen and say, have you thought about it this way or that way? Or, but as far as like in the weeds of the business, like I manage this part of the business. He manages, the school, the nanny, all the things at home. We live on a farm, but you know what? He golfs a lot too. And you know what? I love that for him.
Yeah, that's good. I know that's good. They need that. And
he takes great care of me and he takes great care of the boys and it frees me to do what I love, which is, pour this into the business.
So both of you have completely shifted from your 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That is so amazing. And, it's so much more to come. So that brings me to my next question. What's next, Madeleine?
So we just launched my podcast, The Lux and the Short of It, which I'm really proud of. We just broke some high levels in the chart. So I'm really proud of that. And we've got a book coming and doing more speaking engagements and really just pouring into more women and families who want to create that time and financial freedom through short-term rentals. I just know how transformational it's been for me, our family, and so many of my other clients that I just want to get the message out to as many people as possible.
So your podcast and the book and the speaking is all related to sharing your story about the short-term rental market. Okay, great. That's
Absolutely.
Great. Yeah, I bet you have a lineup of people after you've spoken who just want to come and just pick your brain.
Yeah, and I refer them to my success strategists. Exactly. And like the beauty of having my team, I always want to be able to really pour into people on a high level. And so what I typically say is, you know what, my time is committed fully to the people who have already committed to their short-term rental journey in my program. Like, I'm always happy to have a conversation, but I'm going to let you have a conversation with one of my success strategists to make sure it's a fit for both of us.
What
That
does
was a
your
hard
team
place to be.
look like? Like when I think about your business, there's so many multiple facets of it. You know, you've got the website, you've got the rentals, just, you know, taking care of like the cleaning of them and all that kind of stuff, like the administrative stuff of that as well. And then your coaching business. So do you have everything sort of structured as one business and you have people who are...
There's definitely overlap. We mainly run things out of a holding company, and then there are some subsequent businesses underneath that. And some team members kind of serve dual purposes, but the properties themselves are mainly managed from a team of virtual professionals who are based in the Philippines.
Okay.
And they were all former Airbnb training managers. So high level over there, and they manage all of the operations and administrative side of my properties. One of my virtual professionals is also a coach in my business because there's a wealth of Airbnb specific knowledge that she has that she's able to share with our clients. In the coaching side, we have got 4 full-time coaches over there, a marketing director, a COO, and then a full success strategy sales team over there with 3 or 4 folks.
Well, that's awesome. So what's next for you is nurture this podcast, grow the speaking circuit, get the book launched, and then I'm sure we're going to see even bigger things coming from Madeleine.
That's the plan.
That's the plan.
Nurture the business.
Nurture the business. Exactly. Madeleine, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram as well as LinkedIn at Madeleine Rayford Holland. That's Madeleine, Rayford Holland. On my podcast, The Lux and the Short of It. I think you guys might really love, I believe it's episode 3, Success Habits of a Successful Mind. And also on my website, MadeleineRayfordHolland.com.
Okay, well, I'll put some links in the show notes so that everybody knows where to go. But it has been such a pleasure to hear your story. I think you're wonderful. And I think I just can't wait to see you even 10 years from now, where you're going to be.
Thank you, Lynette. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thanks for joining, and we will talk to you very soon.
Talk soon.
Hey, it's Lynette. Thanks for listening today. Please like and subscribe. And if there's somebody out there that you think could benefit from the episode, give it a share. Midlife is your time, so go get it.